For millions of Muslims worldwide, every daily prayer is directed toward a single geographic coordinate. During the annual Hajj pilgrimage, the immense scale of humanity circulating the Kaaba creates a mesmerizing, continuous tide. To begin and end their 7 circumambulations, pilgrims aim to touch, kiss, or at least point toward the eastern corner of the structure. Specifically, they focus on the Hajar al-Aswad, the Black Stone, housed securely inside that silver casing. This single, small focal point anchors a millennia-old faith, acting as the ultimate unifier for nearly a quarter of the global population. But when you look closely at the aperture, you realize something unexpected. The Black Stone is not a single solid piece of rock. It is actually a cluster of about 8 separate fragments, cemented together into a dark matrix and protected by an oval metallic frame. According to Islamic tradition, the stone descended perfectly intact from heaven. So how did a deeply revered relic end up shattered into pieces? Those jagged edges are the surviving physical evidence of a brutal 10th century heist, an attack that ripped the stone from Mecca and left the Kaaba completely hollowed out for 22 years. Long before the theft, the stone commanded absolute respect. Even in pre-Islamic Arabia, the Kaaba was a strictly enforced sanctuary where warring desert tribes would lay down their weapons and trade in peace. When the structure needed rebuilding in the early 7th century, a bitter dispute broke out over who would return the stone to the wall. Prophet Muhammad prevented a tribal war by placing the stone on a cloth, asking each rival faction to lift a corner to hoist it together. He used the stone to forge a fragile, lasting peace. 300 years later, an emerging radical militant group saw that exact same unity as a threat. To tear the Abbasid Empire apart, they planned to strike directly at Mecca, targeting the very cornerstone of the religion. This map tracks the Qarmatians, a radical militant sect in medieval Bahrain. By the 900s, they grew into an aggressive force challenging the Islamic empires. They viewed the Hajj as a superstition, aiming to permanently dismantle the spiritual center of the Islamic world. In the year 930 CE, they launched a devastating surprise attack on Mecca. Qarmatian warriors sacked the sacred city right in the middle of the pilgrimage season, slaughtering worshippers in the streets. They choked the Zamzam well with casualties. Then they took heavy tools to the Kaaba and violently pried the Black Stone out. The attackers hauled their war prize across the harsh Arabian desert, taking it all the way back to their military base on the eastern coast. The geographical coordinate that anchored the entire Islamic world had been violently breached. The Kaaba was left standing, missing its most vital cornerstone. For 22 years, that corner of the Kaaba sat completely bare. Anyone arriving in Mecca found only a damaged, empty cavity in the wall. Yet the theological paradox of the theft became immediately clear. The Hajj continued without interruption. Millions still arrived and circumambulated the structure, entirely undeterred by the missing relic. The faithful leaned on a precedent set decades earlier by the second caliph, Umar. He had once kissed the stone and stated, "I know well that you are just a stone that can do neither good nor harm." The reverence was about following tradition, not worshipping a physical object. By stealing the stone, the Qarmatians inadvertently proved that the religion was built on ideas, not a magic rock. Their ideological mission failed. The stone was finally returned to Mecca in 952 CE, but only after immense geopolitical pressure from the Abbasids and the payment of a massive ransom. The physical cost of the ordeal was permanent. The violent extraction by the Qarmatians, followed by centuries of later fires and floods, ultimately shattered the stone into the fragments we see today. While the largest remaining pieces were carefully cemented together inside a protective silver frame, historical records suggest several smaller splinters broke off over the centuries. During their centuries of rule over the holy sites, the Ottoman Empire reportedly collected some of these missing pieces. Today, small, rectangular dark stones, claimed to be splinters of the Hajar al-Aswad, are embedded in walls of historic mosques and tombs in modern-day Turkey. The physical splintering and scattering of the stone traces a literal map of the turbulent empires and rival factions that fought to control its legacy. This matrix outlines the 4 leading geological hypotheses for the stone's origin: stony meteorite, agate, glass, and tonalite. Because the relic is highly sacred and permanently encased, modern chemical analysis is impossible, leaving researchers to debate based on visual evidence. The meteorite impact theory remains the most popular. Despite lacking definitive proof, it aligns tightly with historical descriptions, claiming the stone originally fell from heaven, was brilliant white before absorbing human sins, and could float on water. Regardless of its geological makeup, the true weight of the stone lies in its history. A radical army ripped it from the wall to permanently fracture the spiritual center of Islam. Yet today, the Kaaba stands surrounded by millions. That shattered, cemented cluster of rocks inside the silver frame is an indestructible, enduring monument to a unity that survived war, theft, and the relentless passage of time.